Okay.
Yeah.
We'll take the future mayor of Niagara Falls on Talking Niagara.
Okay. All right. First, let's start off. Welcome everybody to Talking Niagara. It's Monday, January 27th. What have you done with January already, Dave? I
I
mean,
don't know.
blinked and it was the 3rd, and now it's the 27th. What the heck have you done?
All I know is I'm getting my thong out ready, so to go to the beach. I'm eyeing out spots on on Nickel Beach right now. Where am I going to set up my my lawn chair?
Yeah. Okay. So, this morning, they're looking. Okay, some of the news items this morning relate to the widening of McLeod Road, which has some provincial funding. So there's about $5 million that's coming from the province, and an overall cost of about 17 million. But this is this is inevitable given everything we know about what's going on McLeod Road. You think about McLeod Road. I remember about when you were off on your sailing trip across the Atlantic that I was talking to Adam Hyde about McLeod Road, and we were both agreed that it's probably going to end up being widened, and that it's going to be probably Niagara's nightmare.
Yeah, it seems to me like we're always talking about McLeod Road, and every time they come up with a new housing strategy or new buildings to be put on McLeod Road, the number one issue is, can McLeod Road handle it? And everybody's already complaining about the traffic on McLeod Road and the infrastructure that's really not there to accommodate new housing developments, particularly multi home dwellings like apartments, condos, and things. And
Well, that's
yet,
all that's going up there, isn't it?
yeah. And every time the council meeting comes, the comments coming back from traffic and the CEO and staff, oh yeah, fun, we recommend this, go ahead. And then comments come about traffic and crowding and the residents complaining about that kind of thing. We even have Mona Patel talking about putting an extra traffic light somewhere there on McLeod Road, and yet now we get this. Oh wow, we really need this $11 million of funding. We could put it right there on McLeod Road, which makes me wonder: have we been putting the cart before the horse all this time? Shouldn't this stuff already be in place before we start these developments? And
absolutely.
Yeah. Now, I'm imagining some of the housing developments that already be approved will start, and it'll plug up McLeod Road, and if the stuff isn't already there, I don't know. It seems to me a little off-putting that they approve these things, and yet they full well know that the infrastructure is not ready for all that on McLeod Road.
Yeah.
And yet they approve the buildings through staff recommendations. Now, what's going on here?
Right, and the likelihood is there's an extra three, maybe 4 sets of traffic lights through the entire length of McLeod Road.
Well, which will make it a stop and go nightmare. It's already way too crowded. You have major shopping there. You have Niagara Square. You have that shopping plaza with Metro in it, and you have, of course, the shopping plaza with Costco in it, and you have the shopping plaza with Walmart going there, which attracts a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
Not only that, but you're adding
and then
more.
You've got 2 highway 2 highway exits and 2 highway entrances, right?
Yeah, and you have plans for developing more development there, more housing development, which is all good. I mean, we need the housing development and all that, but we don't have the infrastructure to support it. But they approve it based on the infrastructure they already had. And now they're telling us, well, we really need this to fix McLeod Road. We have to put this $11 million to work fixing up McLeod Road, more sewers, more curbs, more everything, probably better roads and the sewers underneath.
Well, I
Storm
think we're
sewers,
going to end
etc.
up with a dual carriageway down McLeod Road, and there will be certain places like Dell that you won't be able to get at if you're coming eastbound down McLeod Road, and other junctions that you won't be able to get at if you're going like I can't remember that one that you won't be able to get at if you're going westbound down on McLeod Road.
Yeah. So basically, this is supposed to help with the construction of 7,900 new homes. That's the initiative. The conservative, progressive conservative government initiative, 7,900 throughout the region. And it's supposed to be the funding is delivered through the Housing Enabling Core Servicing Stream.
Yeah.
Couldn't they shorten that name? Under the Municipal Housing Infrastructure Program, which includes $400 million to build, repair, and maintain municipal roads, bridges, culverts. Yeah, we all need all that. And this is the Niagara Falls projects involved in McLeod Road near Oakwood Drive to Wilson Crescent. This is part of the, and seriously, like Nichols said, the city applied for provincial funding for its portion of the project, which municipality is also contributing. Now they approved housing before they even got this from the. So I'm glad they're doing it. Of course, it needs it. However, I'm seriously wondering about the city planning here. It seems to be concentrating too many things on McLeod Road and zeroing in on McLeod Road. We have to diversify.
Well, McLeod Road has been known as being the what would you call it, intensification zone, hasn't it? You can't, with the nice, beautiful homes that exist on Thoroldstone Road, it's hard to intensify Thoroldstone Road, whereas you can do that easily on McLeod because there's so many higher density apartment buildings and that.
Yeah, I'm just like as Nichols said, that new housing types will be likely be fixed at single detached dwellings, townhouses, apartments, and multi-residential. Well, that just about covers everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Most of the buildings that have gone up, there's a new set of townhouses being finished on McLeod right now. There's about a dozen of them. They'll go off onto a side road. There's most of what's coming on McLeod are high rise.
Yeah, more of a concentration of population.
Yeah. When I say high rise, I mean
the big thing here is getting the roads widened, getting them more efficient, probably putting turning lanes here and there.
Yeah,
that we sorely need. But I'm really wondering about the city planning here, and we have approved these things before this funding came about. And is it enough? And it's also talking about putting a roundabout. It says that's a bit of a review. Alternatives, bike lanes, roundabouts, all sorts of things like that. I don't know. I think they're going to change McLeod Road into one giant roundabout. Is probably the best way to do it with,
I'm not in this scenario. I'm not sure roundabouts actually help anything.
I'm not so sure either in this particular case either. But we do have
the one area where you could deal with. Yeah, the one area you could deal with a roundabout, but that would require a different different structure would be if you had a roundabout across the top of the highway junction.
Yeah, I don't know. The city planning is already focusing in the south end, and remember, like the south end at one time there, was kind of like the Welland of Niagara Falls. That's where we put the other people over there. You can live over there, kind of thing. But now it's becoming, and it's kind of ugly too. Like McLeod Road's getting uglier all the time. It's just like these strip malls and gas stations, and there's nothing really nice about McLeod Road. I mean, all roads lead to like used to be all roads lead to Rome, but all roads are kind of leading to these shopping areas, which we need. But it's not like the one here in Morrison Street, where it has added to a lot of traffic, but it seems not to have been a real big problem on Dorchester Road, whereas the way in which this is done in McLeod Road, I think they've concentrated too many things there. And trying to concentrate housing at the same time. Well, I'm glad we're getting $11 million, but how far does $11 million really go when you really think of it? That's 22 new. That's like 20 new houses. So it's not a whole lot of construction. You think of 20 new houses, the average home costing around $600,000. That's $11 million. So how much infrastructure is it really going to be able to tackle? Is it going to be enough to accommodate the new housing and development that's happening in and around there?
Yeah. And everything down from basically Thundering Waters Boulevard, which is opposite Stanley Avenue, all the way west of there on McLeod Road is all really in need of update.
And if you go west of the highway, there on McLeod Road, there's a big farm field that is slated for development. I mean, the developers have really messed up on its planning and so on. And it was presented before the council. Sadly, I didn't watch that part of the council meeting, but the developer wants to develop this huge farm field. Well, there's a couple of them things that have problem with there. It's prime agricultural land, for one, which is always a bummer to me when they do that. Why use prime agricultural land, and why can't you get your head out of the box basically and look for areas that will not affect the farmland around here? But it is right on McLeod Road, and that's going to add to the problems of McLeod Road as well. It seems like McLeod Road is becoming its own little city within a city.
And there's all these new developments that are going on west of Garner. Or west of McLeod, west of Garner. It's been going on west of Kayla for quite some time now. Now we're ending up with new ones west of Garner.
Garner. Okay, yeah. I thought you said I wasn't hearing you. You thought you said.
No, I did make a slip of the tongue.
Yeah, I thought you went all the way to West Africa. Wow, is McLeod Road going all that way?
No, Garner. Garner. No,
yeah, so
no,
Garner.
not
yeah, and you're getting, like I said before, you're getting into areas where you're into farm fields. You're also pushing the limits of the city there, where you get within the 2-kilometer disaster area of SciTech.
Well, that one's already been approved. If you remember the one that we went down, we were in the city hall about 2 years ago.
No, you're thinking of the Grassy Brooks one. I'm talking about the one that's closer, probably to the schools up that way and around.
Oh yeah, okay.
So, I don't know. I hope it works out. I mean, $11 million is not a whole lot, and I'm seriously questioning the city planning there. The amount of
No, but
concentration on McLeod Road.
it's going to be added to pre-existing money to be spent by the region and the city.
Yeah, I remember there's another housing development going right there at the corner, at the southeast corner of Montrose and McLeod. There's one there. There's another one happening a little farther west, and that's supposed to be not for profit apartments going up there, 35. And each time when asked about the concentration of of the concentration of residents and businesses in there, they always say, "Oh well, yeah, it can handle it, it can handle it." But anyone who's driving down that road can clearly see that any much more expansion uh, development there will really cause problems. I mean, you're looking already at people trying to get in and out of their neighborhoods there, and talk about putting new uh, new traffic lights. And also, we have a fire department there, a firehouse there that needs to be able to get in and out of there really quick. So we have to accommodate that as well. We have to find some means by which, on a very busy day, the fire trucks can get out of there. That's another problem I see. But water, sewer, all that stuff, that all has to be upgraded. I can get that, but do we really want to keep concentrating on McLeod Road? And I see some smaller, older homes, like wartime type homes, more east on McLeod Road, that may be bought up and turned into.
Well, there's already some that are actually right next to pre-existing apartment buildings that are up for sale, that have been bought up by one person who's trying to sell them. They're rented out homes at the moment, but they're trying to sell them as a potential, a higher rise building. When I say higher rise, I'm meaning above three levels here.
Yeah. But anyway, so we're getting the money. That's good. And Nichols was really happy that he's able to dump this money into McLeod Road and fix it up. And he's itching to get at other roads too, because a lot of our infrastructure is failing right now. So that all these things are good. You know, we're getting provincial money down here, which is all that, which is a good sign. It's just the fact that it's McLeod Road, and they have to update it now, after approving a whole lot of stuff that should have had the updates first before they did the improvements, or at least knowing that they're going to have these updates.
But there's things like, for example, behind Rona, behind Metro out there, there's things like the old dump ground that potentially will be developed.
Yes. Yeah, that's all very potential. And it seems, yeah, the way the place where we can expand is in the south part of the city.
Yeah.
But like I say, we start to conflict with some of the best farmland in Ontario, and we start eating it up. I think, for all the talk of environmental awareness that we have in our language about developing and expanding and stuff like that, it seems to be keeping available farmland seems to be a secondary or even tertiary consideration, where it should be one of the primary ones. Where can we expand the city where it does not affect those areas of farmland that are so important?
Good question. And ours is only a small city, small space.
Yeah, we are an overbounded city, so we have huge. There's a lot of rural areas within Niagara Falls, and that has to be top of mind for a lot of city councilors, because when you think of farmland and our disappearing farmland, and we have so much good at farmland, and we've already consumed a lot. We're not really planning too well. Like I've said before, there's got to be all kinds of areas within in the overbounded city of Niagara Falls where you can concentrate housing, which would be less intrusive into our rural areas. Our farmland.
And actually, also the other aspect about McLeod Road, is if you're developing the land around the Boys and Girls Club on the south side of the road, that land also is actually into the watershed areas, isn't it, of the rivers and that.
Yeah, and you're getting into the SciTech area as well.
Yeah,
SciTech actually has warned the city about that. I think it was the development I was just talking about, where they wanted to convert a farmland into housing. You're getting into that 2-kilometer emergency zone if something happens to SciTech. And SciTech keeps telling them about this. They did the grassy Brooks thing. It seems to me not taken seriously enough by the city.
No.
When you are potentially putting people in a risk area, which is not a good thing. And SciTech has told them and come on record many, many times that you have to be very careful about this. SciTech is an important industry in Niagara Falls. So in a time when we're losing industry, SciTech is there. We need it, and we need to be very cognizant of the fact that SciTech could be, if anything happens there, it could be a disaster. You have to plan for disasters. You hope they never happen, but you have to plan for them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's one of the worst aspects about this, is that we don't want a disaster like this to happen, but we only need to talk to Mike about when it did happen last time, and he could probably name all the dates.
Yeah, Mike's really sure.
I'm not asking for that now, Mike, but I know you could name all the dates.
Yeah, right. Mike's sent us a bunch of stuff, and it's a book worth of stuff. I can't believe the amount of information that guy holds. It's just amazing.
Well, yeah, he must have a filing cabinet or 6 full of it.
I loved it when he was at city council. It was last year, and he went up and they were talking about that. And I told you this, and I told you that, and I gave you this, and everybody in the council meeting cheered him. Remember that?
Yeah.
And Daddy had to say, "Oh, we have to have a certain amount of decorum," and nobody paid attention to Big Jim that time.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on this? Okay. So
no, it's just actually kind of good news that we are getting the money, but it kind of it does zero in a sort of a microscope on that area, and the dubious amount of development going there when the infrastructure has to catch up rather than be there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. In fact, actually, you need the widened roads with extra. With better potholes. Better.
We got the best potholes already.
Not potholes, with best drainage, etc., in place. Lack of, and no potholes. Hopefully.
Well,
but that's the truth of this. We end up with too many potholes.
Yeah, you can make a positive out of anything. Like we have some of the most outstanding potholes anywhere in Ontario.
we do, unfortunately. We do have some mega potholes, and they don't seem to do anything about it until somebody falls down and injures themselves.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And the season right now is ideal for that, because it's like, well, we just filled, this pothole on this street with ice. You're going to be okay for now.
Yeah, we'll just.
And Valley Way is crumbling. Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. Last time I went down Valley Way, it felt rubbish under there.
Yeah, there's a lot of bumpy roads, and yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, Canadian winters, do a number on our roads here.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Canada and Mexico are refusing US steel orders right now. Whoa. Now we're getting into it. But again, looking at this article, realistically, they're talking about February 1st, i.e. next Saturday, is when they're going to be putting up the whole concept of tariffs. So I guess that really what's happening right now is the Canadian and Mexican steel manufacturers kind of post pause on orders, right?
Yeah, we have a vibrant steel industry going back and forth. When the NAFTA agreement first began, George Bush, the younger, put uh, put tariffs or stalls on Canadian steel, saying that it was too much subsidized from the government. That was quickly proven wrong, but it took 4 years. It took 4 years to go through the accommodations we have to deal with disputes like that, which cost us a lot of money. I remember I was so upset about that because I got a lot of work in steel mills back in those days, and their orders were being reduced into the United States. And when it all was said and done, after 4 years, Canadian steel was deemed fine. There was not any abuse when it came to subsidies from the government. But
Yeah.
George Bush did that on purpose to keep the steel mills going in the United States, to keep the production there, because
According
steel had displaced some of that production. So what he did was put a halt on steel coming in from Canada. And
well, according to U.S. Commerce Department data and research by Morgan Stanley, U.S. consumed about 91 million tons of steel in 23, with imports accounting for 27% of that total demand. So it's only 20. It's only just over a quarter of U.S. steel comes from abroad,
well,
with the
Canada's the
majority
first.
coming from Canada, of course.
Yeah, Canada's the first, and Mexico is the third largest steel exporter to the United States. And unfortunately, steel is one of those things that Donald Trump could say that it's a matter of national security, that they have to produce the steel in the United States in the event of war and for defense, to make sure that amount of steel is forthcoming all the time. It's a ridiculous argument when it comes to Canada, because that steel will never be interrupted. As long as there's a market there, Canadian steel will be available to the U.S. market. So the very idea that they have to produce the steel in the United States as part of a national security thing, it just doesn't really have a whole lot of substance to it, but it sounds good. And and Mike says here, before NAFTA was the auto pact, where 50% of the product had to be made in Canada if sold in Canada. I would ask to go back to that, but make it 65% of the product must be made here. Well, the auto pact was it was inspirational to the NAFTA deal. The auto pact worked so well that the auto pact between the United States and Canada
Yeah,
considered autos made in Canada or autos made in the United States as autos made in North America.
yeah.
And so that there was a lot of freedom for the automakers to build here or build there, and to import and export, and to
Yeah. And the whole point is that whether you were picking up a Ford car from, from Oakville or Detroit, didn't really matter. You were picking up a Ford car that was going to the user, right?
yeah, it was
Whether
almost
that,
it was almost like it was it was a deal, very much like
Yeah,
NAFTA, but
yeah,
zeroed in on automobiles.
yeah,
Now the problem here is this is probably the very first major effect of the looming tariffs, because the steel mills in Canada, uh, half I think, or the one of the major ones is Stelco, is owned by the U.S. Is it owned by
yeah.
a U.S. company? So the they have refused the orders, and Mexico steel producers also uh, refused the orders because they don't know how tariffs are going to affect the steel. They don't want to get stuck with it. They don't want to make
Yeah,
these orders and then be stuck with the amount of steel they've produced.
exactly that, and I don't see this as long term. I see what is happening is they have to wait until Saturday to find out what the future is. They're delaying basically a week because it's like you could make all the steel you want in the next 7 days. It's not going to actually be produced and used in cars by next Saturday. It's going to actually be, just running off the plant, ready to be loaded onto trucks in the next week. Not really any sooner than that, right?
Yeah, and they're making orders for
Yeah,
future needs, and
exactly.
uh, and so they're planning, and this is going to disrupt their planning. And in that short space of time, I don't think they'll be able to find U.S. steelmakers to be able to make that steel. Now, what they could find is there's an overcapacity of steel all around the world, so they can import it from anywhere else. They can import it from Japan or Germany, depending on what kind of tariffs they have on them. I know when we had uh, we had strikes and stuff like that, and places like the UNO mills in Welland Pipe there, when they needed steel, they got most of it from Stelco. But when they had strikes or other problems in production, we got steel when I was working there on contract basis. They got steel from Japan and Germany,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
was extremely high quality, and it was there quick and easy to put together. And in those days, they were dumping a lot of steel for cheap price to keep their steel mills going. So we sort of shut the door on that a little bit. But what you're going to do then is you're going to turn the eyes of the American buyer to other sources. Now, in our favor is the fact that they cannot quickly um, find resources for the next orders, but their orders thereafter they will be able to. And that's where I see the problem is if they find very good suppliers outside their own country, that's going to be a problem. But it's contrary to the agreement that we have already signed with the United States, the one that was produced by the last Trump administration under his direction. We are working under that. Now
yeah.
uh, he's saying that the whole thing has to do with uh, with migration, refugees coming across the border, illegals coming across the border, and fentanyl. But that doesn't even really make a whole lot of sense when
All
we
right.
have that traffic
Yeah.
going both ways.
Well,
And we've got
exactly.
more
We've got
drugs
bigger
in than
traffic of
us.
we've got more drugs coming into Canada than we've got going from Canada to the US. 100 times more drugs coming this way than going the other way.
And are the and we're there's a lot of people starting to line up, getting ready to come to Canada. Um, Kind of luckily, we've strengthened our immigration so that we're already getting rid of a lot of our own migrants. But the whole idea that uh, that this is not about the economy, but more about fentanyl and migrants. That's just his bully boy tactics. Yeah, Canada does have a pathetic immigration system where it's allowing visas for everyone under the sun to come to Canada, or had done, and had to strengthen all of that. And we find that a lot of immigration into Canada is just a setup so that they can sneak into the United States. They've had, I think, what was it? They've had already several hundred, particularly Indian migrants to Canada, trying to get across the border already at legal parts, and we don't know how many are going across the illegal parts. So that kind of thing has to be fixed. But the consequences of this already, and I'm imagine, are they going to have layoffs at the steel mills now because they're not going to be able to produce this particular order that is required by our American customers? Betty Zoom says it really comes from every direction, and who is responsible. I don't know.
Yeah, this article doesn't go into that.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Which is surprising given its source, the Financial Post. Would expect it to have actually looked at more financial components of this.
Yeah. So
we're
in for a problem. Yeah, I was listening to Paul K. Lemire show on Friday, and he interviewed he's got a sponsor, Hamel Machine Company, which is a metal trades outfit that does welding, machining, all sorts of other metal trade things. And he's had a guy's name is Bob Bender, who owns it now. He's had quite a success right now, but he was talking about plans to expand or plans to invest in more, but those are all on hold now because of what Trump is doing. It's pretty scary. It showed you what how it's affecting even a relatively small manufacturing and service company here in Niagara Falls who is all ready to expand and grow their business, but find that it can't because of what Trump is doing right now.
Yeah.
Or threatening.
Right. Yeah. That's an interesting point there. Yeah, exactly. So, but I think that what you got here is actually a kind of temporary pause, but that is still not going to help, but industry relies upon having that constant supply, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting to me that, like, particularly metals and stuff like that, they cannot, as far as aluminum is concerned, they cannot produce that amount of aluminum in the United States that they get from Quebec. I think 90% of their aluminum needs come from Quebec. But steel is another one of those things they can say, well, it is a thing of national importance. And remember too that when Biden came in, he wasn't too nice to us either. He kept a lot of the tariffs that Trump had imposed on our stuff already, under the guise of being of national importance. He did it for a different reason. He wanted to stroke the workers and keep their jobs going, but it didn't make financial sense when you look at trade and how business works. We're getting into a situation now of protectionism, and if our free trade, the big push for years and years, decades, was free trade, opening up that. You go right back to Reagan and all that, to open up trade lanes to make and set the world off into a competition to bring the cost of materials down for everybody. But then you start getting this brand new protectionism and this tariff talk from Trump. I'm not so sure it's good for the world all in all.
Well, we get this sway between nationalism and free trade, between protectionism and free trade. It's been moving back and forth over the years, and the last few years has been in the favor of free trade.
Yeah, it's definitely a better idea, provided there are protections in place. We found that the globalization initially helped a lot of people because it brought down the prices of everything, and it's brought China out of the dark ages basically into modern times, because a lot of Western money went there to invest in
Yeah,
the sort of early
not sure it was a wise choice,
time.
but still.
Yeah, they at that idea, they thought it was a good idea to bring China in and make them dependent on world the world economy. But I don't. But at the same time, uh, greedy Westerner, well, the government really wasn't watching that when greedy Westerners were closing places here and building them in China
Yeah,
to maximize profit. And now it's got these kind of policies have got us in the West uh, sort of arguing
into trouble.
amongst each other rather than really facing the big problem, which is unfair trade practices with China.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They've gotten us into a lot of trouble over time. And in fact, actually, China is, of course, one of these potential places that could provide the steel.
Well, yeah, it has a lot of steel. It can make
Yeah.
steel a lot, but it suppresses its own yuan to make it cheaper. And right now, too, China is very much dependent on exports more than anything because it has not planned its domestic consumption well enough. So the domestic consumption in China, which is integral to any country to have both external and internal commerce, that the U.S. domestic or the Chinese domestic markets are falling off, which pushes China into over reliance on exports. And when they have over reliance on exports, they're going to make them as cheap as possible, and they're going to dump their stuff in other countries.
Yeah.
Uh, it's I think those are the main problems, and I think, well, basically what Trump is doing is always putting us on our back foot rather than being able to concentrate on the real problems. Right. So he says stuff like, well, we're going to just give you 25% tariffs and all that without fully thinking about it and scaring us. And it's working.
Yeah. All right. moving on. Regional councillors are going to get an earful about the notwithstanding clause. Um, Basically, there's a motion being raised at the regional council.
Yeah, it's a moral dilemma. It's an ethical dilemma. The regional councilors are looking at the notwithstanding clause and how that will affect breaking down of encampments and moving them and having a more um, laws that will enable them to get past Section 7 of the Canadian Constitution, which is the rights of people to be how trying. They can't. In other words, they can't break down the homeless encampments without getting into their human rights, as we found out by local judges who have said you can't not knock down a homeless area encampment unless you have places for these people to go. And since most cities have never really planned for this amount of homelessness in their midst, they are woefully unprepared for the amount of homeless people. Now there is this because of the frustration of everybody, the notwithstanding clauses come up, where you can override Section 7 and dismantle these encampments and put them wherever you want to, or just dismantle them.
Well, I'm not a fan of utilizing the notwithstanding clause. I do believe that the cities can do more to encourage and encourage a way out of the homelessness. Maybe even have encampments in a particular area, but also provide ways out, provide next steps away from the encampment. Right, but that could be done all without a notwithstanding clause.
Yes,
because you want to be able to encourage people to an area that has got washrooms, an area that's, so it may well still be just an encampment, but you've got washrooms and toilets and things like that available to the homeless in the first instance, and then from there you've got the ability to move them out into more stable accommodation.
Well, the whole problem is, can you force the people to do certain things? Right now, as we found, that even when we do try to accommodate the homeless people in Niagara Falls, in better places for them to live, like Buchanan Street and Summer Street, we find that that is disruptive to communities in and around there. That are drug abuse and thievery and bad behavior going on. So the very idea of taking people who are more likely to be disruptive and crime ridden and taking them to other areas of the city, like almost like a little reservation, and putting them there is an attractive idea, but that's contrary to their rights. Now, what the region is saying, well, we should be using the facilities we have and pump a lot more money into them and plan a little bit better. We have never really devoted a really good plan or resources to all of this. Our first response, of course, to the growing homelessness is to be able to provide them more food and some shelter overnight, that kind of thing. But food and clothing and all that kind of thing has happened, but it's all haphazard here and there. Charitable groups step in, city groups, municipal groups, all that. What you need is a comprehensive plan. And no matter if you go with the notwithstanding clause or you just do consolidate your plans as they are without the notwithstanding clause, it's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of planning.
Yeah.
And the attractability of the notwithstanding clause removal is that you can then round up these encampments, kind of force them into a place where you can monitor it and it cannot spill over into other neighborhoods where you have an encampment on the outside of your property leaning against your fence, kind of thing, or in the middle of a city park where people plan to take their children or family to enjoy the park, and there's an encampment of homeless people there, and all kinds of things like.
No, that's why I said you need to. The potential is that if you can have organized encampments where in selected places, there's potentially is good for that, because you've got therefore places that are accessible for the homeless, places where they can clump together and support each other, and we can deal with it, right?
Well, what happens here in the region is the whole thing has come up again because of this notwithstanding clause, and the city of St. Catharines, or the region basically as a whole, the politicians are loath to overlook or enact the notwithstanding clause in this particular case. And what they have done is pretty much said, like here it says, the motion requests increased provincial funding and support for affordable housing, mental health services, addiction treatment programs, and more effective humane alternatives to encampment evictions. Well, yeah, that's what we've been trying to do the whole time. But the problem is, and I think Laura Lococo pointed this out in one of the meetings, they've never really fully tried to use the facilities that are already existing.
Yeah.
They have never funded them completely. They have never
Yeah.
narrowed in on a good plan.
And that is part of the trouble that I see, is that we haven't been doing that. We haven't thought that through.
Yeah, and here's Matt Cisco, who is one of those, like our own mayor, who is seriously considering the notwithstanding clause. I don't think using the notwithstanding clause is the right solution, but I want to highlight something that Matt Simcoe said. Pardon me. This is by Huson, a fellow by the name of Huson. So that space is part of the solution, but there's also very real mental health resourcing and mental illness resourcing, and a properly funded healthcare system and healthcare resources that have to be part of the solution, whether you go with notwithstanding clause or not. My point has always been, you haven't put enough resources to this already. You're doing it willy-nilly. You're trying to band-aid the thing by providing food, maybe, and shelter overnight, and out of the cold and out of the hot heat kind of resources that homeless people could stay in at night. But the real impetus of the notwithstanding clause is to be able to dismantle the places where these people live in encampments and put them in a certain area so you can control them and put your funding in. But even if we put the money, put the resources into existing facilities that take care of the homeless people or try to address their issues, it's going to cost a lot more money. Yeah. And the plan has to be there. Right now, the reason why the notwithstanding clauses even come up is because of the inability of the region or cities or even provinces to address this issue.
Yep.
There
it's getting worse.
It's getting worse. Plan. There isn't a comprehensive plan. There isn't enough funding. There isn't enough means by which we can address this issue. So either way, no matter which way you go, notwithstanding clause or other, you're going to have to devote an extraordinary amount of resources to this. This is a troublesome thing that it seems to be beyond the capability of ordinary regional or municipal means of dealing with our poor. This is a completely different. We haven't seen this since the Depression era, and the Depression era and the shanty towns there had to do a lot more with the economic turmoil.
Well, I would have to say that probably the numbers of homeless today, Dave, are higher than they have ever been in your or my lifetime.
Yes, quite a bit. Yeah. I hardly ever saw a homeless person most of my life.
I remember a few beggars. I remember a few beggars once or twice when I was a kid on the streets, especially when you went up to London, but not exceptional amounts.
Yes, and we kind of, I think, probably comparing it to the Depression time, the shanty towns around the Depression time is not a really good comparison in many ways, because there is economic wherewithal right now where people can get jobs and at least get some money coming in, and yet we find that a lot of our homeless are overwhelmed by mental illness and drug addiction, which often overlap, and we can't seem to break the cycle of homelessness, addiction, and poverty. It seems that this is not the same as it was during the 30s, where most of the people in the shanty towns were just damn broke. And in this case, people are being forced onto the streets and then adapt a lifestyle. Like I said, I know a guy that was two actually guys that were homeless that had no drug or mental health issues, but were just dirt poor. So one guy lived in his car, and another guy I see him from time to time here in Niagara Falls. One of the smartest guys I've ever known. His name is Maxwell. If anyone ever knows Maxwell, you see him here and there already. You know, he's just dragging his stuff around. But anyway, that's a sad thing. So we're in this moral dilemma. Do we become overlook the rights of our citizens with the notwithstanding clause to do something that's good for them, or should we do what's good for them without interfering with the rights? When you start interfering with people's rights, that could be a slippery slope. What next?
That is a slippery slope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Whose rights are you going to overlook the next time?
Yeah, exactly. And it's it's that statement from the Second World War which always gets me, is they came for the communists and I wasn't a communist, so it didn't bother me. They came for the disabled and I wasn't disabled, so it didn't bother me, etc., etc. And I won't go through the whole of that, but I'm sure you are familiar with that statement. And
yeah,
the whole point is,
yeah, it was written by a Protestant minister in a German. He ended up dying actually in
he ended up dying through the war.
Yeah, when they came
and
for
they
him.
came for him. Yeah. The whole point is, do we get into that situation again? No, hopefully we don't.
No, and with the tumult in the political system right now, unfortunately, we have a populist down south of us there in the United States who is getting more and more popular all the time by using extreme measures of evicting people and so on. And right now, he's getting a lot of cheers for doing things that nobody else has been able to do. And he's going to get a lot of thumbs up. But we do remember, and I don't want to overuse the Hitler thing, but remember Hitler came into Germany, and the first thing he did was put everybody to work. He built roads, he built train systems, like you had mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
he did a lot of public works, got people working, got everybody back together, and started.
It's what made him popular.
Jews for everything, and everybody, oh, he must be right. And but in the end, he walked them down an evil path. So we have those. I'm not saying like Trump is that,
sending,
but it is a setup for that kind of thing.
Yeah. Sending 15-year-old Hitler Youth boys out to fight in the dying days of the war, that shows you how bad that regime was.
Well, it was bad from the very beginning on. I mean, the death camps and the 50 million people that died during that war. 85. I saw the statistics. 85% of the people that died in the European theater of the Second World War were due to the Axis powers.
Yeah.
So, and we do know that like about 28 million Russians died. Like 28 million. When you think of the U.S. deaths during that war, was somewhere just a little on the plus side of 400,000 guys.
Yeah.
When you compare it to 28
I know.
million.
There was one battle. Because I've been looking at a few documentaries and I can't remember which one it was, but there was one battle where there were 600,000 Red Army and about 1 million Germans that died in that battle.
Oh, it could have been one of the battles around Stalingrad.
Probably was. Yeah.
Yeah, that was immensely
bloody
costly
territory.
on both sides.
Yeah. And the largest loss of life was on the on that eastern front. Dave? Dave.
Oh, there you are.
Okay. Yeah, the largest loss of life was on that eastern front. Yeah, but anyway, so the point being is that we've got bad situations here which we need to get better, right?
Well, certainly the populism that I see rising is the thing that I'm most worried about, because populism is the kind of thing that will enable more authoritarianism. And when you have a leader that looks like they're very effective using dubious methods, then the population sees that somebody's getting something done and they get behind them. They forget the democratic process that got them there.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna have to call it quits at that particular point. All right.
Yes. So as I say every morning, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Let's pray for peace. That Gaza thing is nuts. We could talk about Trump's.
We will talk about Trump's.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the next show. All right. So